A mask-off moment for the disgraced, twice-impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president. He is making his contempt for our democracy and its institutions and its people crystal clear once again. While President Joe Biden honored Veterans Day by laying a wreath and paying tribute to those who sacrificed for our country, the ex-president said this.
We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections and will do anything possible. They'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream. The real threat is not from the radical right. The real threat is from the radical left, and it's growing every day, every single day. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within. Our threat is from within.
So you know we have a high bar when we show that to you. Today it's important, and here's why. When an ex-president who sought to overturn American democracy claims in a speech like that in front of his supporters that Americans right here at home pose a greater threat to our country than any of our adversaries abroad, and describes his political opponents as, quote, vermin, it naturally leads to comparisons to other authoritarian leaders. Washington Post spoke to 2 historians who had this to say, quote, the language is the language that dictators use to instill fear. That was Timothy Naftali, a senior research scholar at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs. Quote, when you dehumanize an opponent, you strip them of their constitutional rights to participate securely in a democracy because you're saying they're not human, and that's what dictators do. Ruth Ben-Gayat, a historian at New York University, said in an email this, quote, calling people vermin was used effectively by Hitler and Mussolini to dehumanize people and encourage their followers to engage in violence. Now, in a statement to NBC News, a Trump campaign spokesperson rejected the comparison to Hitler, calling it, quote, ridiculous, a ridiculous assertion, but then said this about Trump's critics, quote, their sad, miserable existence will be crushed when Trump returns to the White House. Of course, either wittingly or unwittingly proving their point. Now, Trump's comments are also a reflection of an ex-president right now, in this moment, who has become, believe it or not, more erratic, more unstable, more uninformed, if that's even possible, than when he was in the White House. He's now totally and wholly consumed by conspiracy theories and dead set on relitigating his defeat and the January 6th insurrection at the cost of the Republican Party having any last fingers or grasp on their integrity. Who Donald Trump is now and the vision he and his allies have for the country right now is drawn in extraordinary detail in Jon Karl's brilliant new book, Tired of Winning: Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party. Jon Karl reports that months after he left the White House, Trump became obsessed with the idea that was circulating on the far right that he could somehow be reinstated as president, despite the fact that members of Trump's own family and even ardent Trump supporters like Jenna Ellis had dismissed the theory. Quote, one person getting their hopes up was Trump himself. One of Trump's relatively junior aides at Mar-a-Lago told me that he was so concerned about how much Trump was talking about it, he urged the former president to give it a break. Quote, if you really think it's true, then stop talking about it. Just let it happen, the aide said he told Trump. If you keep talking about it so much, people will think you are crazy. Here's what the ex-president had to say to Jon Karl.
When you had a release recently, you said 2024 or before. What do you mean by that? You don't really think there's a way you would get reinstated before the next election, do you?
I'm not going to explain it to you, Jonathan, because you wouldn't either understand it or write it.
It's above your head, said Donald Trump to Jon Karl. An ex-president and current Republican frontrunner with an authoritarian vision and plans now on paper for the future of the United States is where we begin today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. He's the chief Washington correspondent for ABC News. His latest book, Tired of Winning: Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party, is out tomorrow. It's the most important thing that's been written to date about what is in front of the American people in the next presidential election. Also here at the table, former top official at the Department of Justice, Andrew Weissmann, plus former Congressman from Florida, David Jolly's here. Betrayal, in my opinion, was the roadmap that the January 6th Select Committee agreed was the roadmap for investigating how January 6th happened. This feels darker, if that's possible. This feels like the roadmap that Donald Trump would use to turn our democracy into something really different. What he envisions, what's out, what's being covered. I think the excerpts from your book put in motion a little bit more of a reveal from the Trump camp. And these are plans on paper.
Yeah, look, I think the January 6th committee did a tremendous job of describing what January 6th was all about. The prosecution we've seen at the federal level in Georgia have outlined all that Donald Trump did to use the powers of the presidency to try to overturn American democracy, to try to overturn a presidential election. But this is darker, because what this is not trying to explain what Donald Trump did on January 6th or in the weeks leading up to January 6th. This is looking at what he would do if he were to get power again. And I firmly believe, and I think the research in this book lays it out, that Trump is going to be more determined to upend the norms and the customs that make democracy possible. He is going to have fewer restraints, no real guardrails. I think January 6th is basically a starting point, not an end point, if there is another Trump presidency.
I think there's ground that's covered in betrayal where you reported, let's deal with Hitler, okay?
Okay.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity, right? People like General Kelly were like, oh, you must not get it. You must not mean Hitler's army, right? I mean,
he would talk about the brilliance of Hitler's generals.
Correct.
General Kelly, yes.
Correct. And you've got some reporting about Merkel. I want you to explain that. I'm going to read that. But tell me how Trump sees Hitler.
Well, Trump clearly has this infatuation with strong leaders. He thinks that's good. They must be brilliant. They must be smart. This is why he actually was praising Hezbollah recently for being smart. But he talks about
really smart is what he said about Hezbollah.
His praise for Kim Jong-un, for Putin, for Viktor Orban of Hungary. I will get to the Hitler, this amazing interaction that he had with, that he recounted that he had with Angela Merkel. I mean, he wants to be seen as a big, strong leader. He wants to emulate these people. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a Nazi. I'm not. But there is this infatuation that he has, and he echoes his language. I mean, that's when you were talking, when he talks about rooting out the vermin. Even the phrase, the enemy of the people, which he used to describe the press, is something that is drawn from Nazi Germany. It's also drawn from Stalin. This is a dictator's phrase, and it's one that he eagerly embraced. Does he know all the history of it? I don't know, but the parallel is clear.
But see, here's why I don't buy the ignorance anymore, because an ignorant person, when warned that Hitler used to call Jews vermin, would stop.
Would stop, yeah.
Trump's turning up the volume.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I remember a conversation I had with him when we had the mass shootings in El Paso and in Dayton in short order. And there were real concerns that there would be copycats, there would be more. And he was using this language, again, this language out of the Third Reich, of enemy of the people. And I said, aren't you concerned that people will take your words to heart? Aren't you concerned that they'll act on them? And without missing a beat, he said, I hope they take my words to heart, because I firmly believe the press is the enemy of the people, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, maybe it's an inability to have any kind of empathy or understanding of the consequences of your words, but that is consistent. I mean, that is not new with Donald Trump.
Let me read the Merkel stuff. Okay, it's from the book. One prominent member of Congress, a Trump ally, told me that the president on 2 separate occasions claimed Merkel had complimented him in the large crowds he attracted when he spoke. Quote, she told me that she was amazed at the sight of the crowds that came to see me speak, Trump told the Republican congressman, quote, she said she could never get crowds like that. In fact, she told me that it was only one other political leader who ever got crowds as big as mine. Only one in history. The Republican congressman couldn't believe the insinuation was lost on Trump. And I'm thinking, you told me while recounting his interaction with Trump, you know who she's talking about, right? Take me behind that. Take me inside.
I mean, this is, first of all, this is a very prominent member of Congress who was very close to Donald Trump, who was absolutely blown away by this. Because clearly, if, you know, who knows what Merkel actually told Donald Trump, but he's recounting the story.
Right.
The chancellor of Germany telling him, only one person could get crowds like yours in all of history. It's obvious what she is trying to talk to him, because Trump's bragging about his crowds, saying, I mean, so, I don't know, this ally felt that Trump enjoyed the idea of being compared to Adolf Hitler. At least the aspect of Adolf Hitler attracting all those huge crowds.
Huge crowds.